Hello everybody, welcome back to the shop. Doing some more work on the Bovaird and Seyfang Model BP. This was my first oil field engine and I still don't have it running. It has been quite a challenge most every step of the way. What I'm doing is pulling the flywheel off. Now I really didn't want to do this, but I had to. After I took the main bearing caps off, and I took a look at the journals, they're not ideal. They're obviously dirty. They're somewhat pitted, and I want to clean these and JB them, just like, JB weld them, just like I did with the cylinder and the crosshead rails there. I need to also do that to the connecting rod journal there. I also want to just really make it easy for myself to clear all this rust and grease and crap out. Inspect the lower half of the bearings, and to do that I gotta take the crank out. What you'd normally do on almost any flywheel engine like this, you just take the bearing caps off and then you pick it from the flywheels. Of course you would not, if that was the case, you wouldn't have a chain here and a chain there coming together to a point where you pick from, because that pulls the flywheels in together. You'll bend the flywheels, bend the crank, it just would not be good. So you'd want a spreader bar, or you run an I-beam or something through the flywheels in between the spokes, then pick that way, something like that. Anyway, I could not do that because this model BP has a side shaft, and then the gear drive for the side shaft is enclosed in a case, of course, for lubrication. But as you can see, this case is held on with these studs that go thus ways. In order to take this case off, this case has to slide that way, and the flywheel's in the way. And I thought about it long and hard, and I couldn't see any way around it. So I had to take the flywheel off to take the gear case off in order to take the crank out. Not ideal. I don't want to do it, didn't want to do it, but no other way to do it. I didn't want to half-ass these bearings or journal surfaces. I don't want these to wear out and just cause trouble later down the road. So what can you do? Anyway, so this has been a 6-month, maybe year-long, 8-month fight. I don't really remember, but it's been a while. I started out by taking out the 2 bolts, the pinch bolts that go through the hub. This particular flywheel has a split hub, and once it's on, you put the pinch bolts through and it tightens the hub on, of course. So the first thing I did is I took those bolts out and I installed gently with some wedges, pounded them in as hard as I could. There's another wedge in here covered by the rag, but I put in 2 wedges hard as I can to spread the hub out. And then I made a puller. This is the puller I initially made. You can see it's just 3 pieces of heavy bar stock welded together. In the middle I drilled a hole and just tack welded in a big nut. I think this is 1.5" fine thread. I don't remember what the pitch is. And then I made myself a bolt with a piece of threaded rod. I welded a nut on the end. And the other end I put it in the lathe and just sort of free-handed a little tit on there to keep it centered. And it kind of worked in that, well, you turn the screw and everything gets tight, but it didn't budge the flywheel. And I had like 8 feet of pipe on the wrench. And, of course I wrapped these chains around the flywheel and then around the puller to make it work. This is a real heavy duty. I don't know if this is maybe a 3/8 chain or 5/16. I don't know how you measure this. I don't know, something like that. You can see how big it is. Heavy duty chain, that plated stuff, trucker's chain I think they call it. And of course I didn't want to put strain on the spokes, so you can see the way I wrapped it. I think there's no other real way to do it. I think it came out pretty well. So I got these chains wrapped with rags for safety. I'll get to that later. But anyway, with that puller, with the screw, it didn't do it. So I took it off and I put this hydraulic jack on there. This is a 20-ton hydraulic jack, air over hydraulic actually. So you can see I put the ram in the center there. Oh, I forgot. I thought the key was impeding my progress, which I'm sure it was. So I tried pulling the key out. I was equally as unsuccessful with that. See, I drilled some holes to try to relieve it, allow it to shrink in a little bit. And I tried welding a threaded stud on there, and then putting a pipe over that stud and a nut with a washer and try to jack it out. All I did was rip the weld off. I also could have threaded those holes, but I really don't know how much success I would have had with like a 1/2-inch stud. That's pretty much all you could fit in there, thread-wise. So then when I put this jack on here, this was quite an arrangement. As you can see, the jack is heavy, the puller part is heavy, the better 3/4, and I tried to manhandle this up here by hand, and it just wasn't happening. Everything was all cockeyed. So I ended up clamping with C-clamps. Here's a clamp here. I clamped the puller bar onto the jack. So that's one assembly, and then I tied the piece of ratchet strap to the jack to my engine hoist. And this actually happened to be a perfect balance point. So I just lifted it up and it was right in place, and I wrapped the chains around it, and I was able to operate the jack, and it worked out a lot better. So I did that, still didn't work. But I had a tip from a buddy of mine, Jay, who I bought a couple engines from, and he told me, "Have you tried heat?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I tried heat." And he says, "Well, where are you heating it?" And I said, "Well, the hub, of course. I mean, that's where it sucks. That's where you put the heat." And he says, "No, try heating the rim." And he explained, if you heat the hub's of course going to want to try to expand, but as it's trying to expand, it's pushing against the spokes and pushing against the rim of the flywheel, so that hub can't expand out anywhere. So he said heat the rim, so as the rim heats up and expands, it pulls out the hub. So I said, son of a bitch, that sounds like a good idea, and I did it, and it worked. Definitely put some strain on it. You know, like I said, I wrapped these chains with these rags. I took it off so you could see, but I wrapped it with rags to kind of deaden any whiplash that may happen, because chains can be just as violent as a cable when it snaps. So, and also what's nice is that this was air operated, so I had the air hose with a valve on the end. I could stand back and operate this with one hand and cover my nuts with the other hand, and it worked out all right. So anyway, finally got it to budge. I'm guessing maybe 10 tons or so did it. I wasn't stalling the jack, but it was definitely working pretty hard, and this chain was stretching. So at any rate, that's the trick, or a trick to use. Another one to put in your toolbox, put up your sleeve. Now, as you can see, it has moved. That's, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch or so. And I can't take it off all the way right here, partly because I need to get my forklift in here to support the flywheel when it comes off completely. And also I have to take off the cart wheel, because the cart wheel is interfering. So now that this is loose, I'm going to wheel this outside on a good day. It's too damn cold. I think my puller is just gonna squeak by the garage door frame there. I don't have to take it off. And actually I might have to reposition something or use a different jack, because this spring return plate is it's gonna hit the ID there of the flywheel. But anyway, I got it moving, so now I'm gonna take the engine outside and then continue to jack this off with my forklift forks in there. And one more big heavy step with this engine that I didn't want to do, that I had to do, and another step closer to getting this thing running and barking and making noise. So now, since the next step is to wheel it out, I have to wait a little while, because we got plenty of white stuff out there, and I just don't quite feel like working in the snow, especially with the forklift. You know, I could see it being pretty slippery on the driveway, even though it's gravel. So it's going to be a little bit of a pause before I can do the next step of pulling the flywheel off. So I'm just going to have this short little video for you guys to see and enjoy. And that's about it for now. Stay tuned for the next step of this project and all my others. In order to stay tuned, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up if you like this, and I'm sure you did. Thanks for watching, and come on back for more.